In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to install a T'EYES CC3 head unit into your IS200, IS300, or Altezza. I bought myself the 2K version, but if you get the regular one, the install is going to be the exact same. Before I go ahead and take the dash apart, I just want to give a quick look at my old head unit. I bought this last year for about €100, and I paid around 80 I think for the harness, and then 30 for like the dash trim. This at the time looked quite good because it had Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so I thought it'd be quite decent, but it's actually very basic. You can see this is the main menu, you don't get a whole lot. The Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is wired, so I've actually never used it. The Bluetooth menu, there's not much here. The phone book and the call log, that doesn't work for me for some reason. And then all I really do in this is just skip tracks, and sometimes I have to double click on that as well. So it's pretty bad when it comes to like the user interface and the actual usability of it. Also, audio control on it is very poor. So you get an equalizer, and while driving, this is kind of impossible to adjust, and you don't get any subwoofer control, which I thought was quite disappointing. So overall, this is like very limited on features. There's not a lot of customizability on it as well. So I'm pretty excited to see what this new head unit is going to be like. So to install the head unit onto the dash piece, you get two little Ziploc bags. I'm going to show you how all this goes together. So on the back of the dash piece, there's 4 mounting holes, and you get 2 of these long brackets, and I'll show you how this works. So on it, it'll say right and left, if you can see here. Try and get it to focus. So the right side would go onto what you'd see as the left. And the way it works is the top and bottom holes line up like this. So you see the longer part goes to the left on the top, if that makes sense. And the straight down piece goes towards the bottom of the dash piece. And like I said, you get 2 of these brackets. And I'll show you how to mount them on with the head unit now. So you're just going to want to place the head unit in here like so. And then you'll see there's 4 mounting holes on the head unit as well. And they'll correspond with mounting holes on the brackets. So you can see this one's left, so it's going to go on what I see as the right here. And you get 4 little screws inside this bag. I'll try and show them. So these 4 screws are going to go into the bottom hole and into the top hole of the bracket. To secure the actual head unit to these brackets, there's going to be 2 mounting holes on each bracket, and these screws for them are going to be in a separate Ziploc bag with a screwdriver in it as well. One thing I noticed is that the mounting brackets didn't come with any screws, unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to find ones that will be suitable for these. I'm gonna go ahead and take my dash apart now, but I wanted to mention first that removing this top panel can be a little bit different depending on what you have up here. If you've got a storage cubby, you just undo a cover, there'll be 2 screws, and you can pull the panel out. It's gonna be held in with clips. And then if you've got the sat nav, you're gonna undo this little cover here, remove 2 screws, pull this out a little bit, and then you can undo the connectors and put it off to the side. For me, it's a bit different. My gauges share the wiring from the head unit, so I am going to have to remove this panel, put it behind a little bit, and then I'm going to have to remove the climate control head unit, and then I can undo the wiring for the gauges and put this to the side. But for most of you guys, you can remove this panel and put it off to the side. I'm going to do things a little bit differently, obviously, because I've got gauges up here.
Find my way back to you. I'm lost again. I don't wanna run from all of this. I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. So break me. I'm falling hard, don't help me. I've been
panel down here is just held in the clips, so you can just slide it out like this, and then you can just undo all the connections. Take out the head unit, you're going to have to undo 4 10mm bolts, and they're going to be on each corner.
So break me. I'm falling hard, don't help me. I've been gone.
climate controls, there's going to be 2 connectors, and then on my current head unit I had 2 connectors on this as well.
I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love.
So now I can go ahead and take this harness out. I'm not going to be reusing it, and you'd only have this if you installed an aftermarket head unit. The new CC3 is just going to plug into the stock connector directly. I'm going to go ahead and install these brackets now. I mentioned earlier they didn't come with any screws, so I picked these up from a hardware store. They're a little bit too long for the top brackets because you can see it'll end up poking through and probably hitting the head unit. For the bottom ones it won't matter, as you can see. But for the top ones, I went ahead and picked up these washers as well. The longer bracket is going to go on the bottom and the smaller bracket is going to go on the top. For these brackets here that held the head unit on, the right left was opposite, but for these brackets, if it stays right on them, it's going to go on the right side.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall.
These tabs on both sides get in the way of installing the new radio, so I'm going to have to cut these off. I tried test fitting the head unit and it pushed the dash slightly outwards, creating a panel gap. So what I did is I removed the head unit itself because this is what was interfering with the dash. And what I had to do in the end was use my Dremel to just grind down the edges of it a little bit, and now it's fitting without any issues. So getting this far and removing the ribbon connector, as you saw, was pretty straightforward. To remove this PCB, which is what we're going to be using, you can push on these connectors here and pull apart the housing like this, and it'll just pop out like so. I did a bit of testing off camera and I know how all the wiring stuff goes together now, but before I do that, I just want to quickly show how the climate control stuff goes together. So in the box, you'll get this little PCB here. I'm going to call this a translator PCB. It takes what the factory climate controls are saying and sends it to the head unit. So on here, we have this block connector, as you can see, and opposite it, we have a ribbon cable that's already attached to it. This is the one that was attached to it in the box for me anyways. We're not going to be using this one because the one on the factory climate controls is a bit wider, and it actually comes with a wider ribbon cable. So we can go ahead and disconnect this straight off the bat, and the connector we're actually going to use is the one beside the block connector. So the wider connector just here. Now you can use the one they provide, but I don't think that's necessary. You can use the one that's already attached to the PCB, and the way you want it attached is the writing facing towards the rest of the board, which is already how it's going to be in there. But in case you take it out, that's how you put it back in. And the way you want to attach it is with the writing on the ribbon cable facing downwards, so it would be like this. And once you have it in there, you can just push this black connector in like that, and now that's connected. And now I'll explain how all the wiring goes together. Now I'm going to go ahead and explain how all the wiring goes together. So the main connector that goes into the head unit is this black one here, and this is going to plug in just beside the fuse like so. Then the other connector that's going to go into the actual head unit is this one here, and this has two green wires on it, and this goes into the second last slot on the top like that. Then there's going to be two more block connectors, these guys here. The smaller one goes into this PCB here, and they only go in one way, so you see that's how that's going to go in. And then the wider connector, this one here, is going to go into what I called earlier the translator PCB, and again this one only goes in one way as well, so you don't have to worry about messing it up. That's going to go in like this. This connector here with the RCA cables on it, I think is for some sort of audio or video input. I'm not going to be using this, so technically I could just cut it off, but for the most part you can just leave this off to the side. You're not going to be using it. Then we come to these three connectors, and this depends on what car you have. So if you've got an IS200 or IS300, likelihood is you're going to have to be using this bigger connector here. But I know some Altezzas use these two smaller connectors, but because I have an IS200 and mine uses this connector here, I don't need these, so I can actually just go ahead and cut these off. I thought I'd mention that I'm deciding to remove this connector as well now, because it's just going to get in the way and I'm not going to use it. And if I do ever want to join it back together, it's only 5 wires, so it won't take me long to do. I just wanted to quickly show that I made a little housing for the climate control PCB. The kit doesn't come with any sort of housing, so they expect you to just put bare PCBs behind the head unit. I didn't want to do that because I'm probably going to have stuff apart again in future, and I didn't want it to be a hassle to put stuff back together and take it apart. So I decided to make this. It's not the neatest and it's kind of rough around the edges, but it'll do the job just fine. I ended up having to use the longer ribbon cable because I want to put the translator PCB on this side, and so the short one wouldn't have worked. I also have a little slot for it here, and then I have this little piece of number plate here that I'm going to cut up and use as a lid, but I thought I'd just show what it looks like on the inside first. I finished making a housing for the climate control PCB, and I've mounted the translator PCB onto it as well now. I had a slot here for the ribbon cable like I showed before, and I also put some Velcro on the back and around the sides so that it doesn't rattle around behind the head unit, and I'm going to probably put some Velcro on the dash as well so that this can kind of stay in place. So you can see I put some Velcro strips here for the climate control stuff to attach onto. Now what I'm going to do is attach the antennas. So there's 3 of them. There's the 4G antenna, there's a GPS antenna, and then one of them is a Wi-Fi antenna. My plan is to just kind of put them right along here on both sides. I'm going to put the GPS one on this side, and I'm going to put the Wi-Fi and the 4G one on this side. I've got the antennas attached. I've got the GPS one on this side, and on this side I've got the 4G and Wi-Fi antenna. I have the cables coming out and ready for it as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect up the climate controls and mount them here. So I've got the climate controls attached now, and it's actually pretty sturdy. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. The head unit comes with quite a few accessory cables. The only one I'm going to need is this one here, because I have a subwoofer and this has the audio out for the subwoofer. What I'm going to do is connect everything in the dash first, including this big wiring harness. As I mentioned earlier, I cut off the Altezza connectors and have everything kind of closed off with some heat shrink. So what I'm going to do now is take off some of these zip ties because they're on there quite loosely, and I'm going to use some of this harness tape just to try and neaten stuff up. So I've got the wiring all ready to go now. I put a bullet connector on here for the amp turn on wire for my subwoofer. So what I'm going to do now is connect everything into the dash first, and then I'm going to connect everything onto the head unit. So like I've mentioned previously, this wider connector here is what's going to go into the translation PCB here.
And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby, up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding me up. Play me like a bass guitar, simmer down and mash me up. Tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. Me up, drum me round in your red Ford, shivers down my spinal cord. Oh, 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 oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it.
I'm going to go ahead and end the video here because it's gotten pretty long as it is. I have it installed and working, as you can see, and I have been using it for quite a while now. I plan on making a follow-up video really soon, just going over the head unit in detail and mentioning all the things I like and don't like about it and the stuff that can be improved upon. Overall though, it is a huge upgrade over the factory one, and still a huge upgrade over the head unit I had before it as well. So I definitely recommend it, and if you guys want to buy it where I bought it from, then I'll leave a link in the description. And if you guys found this video helpful, please be sure to let me know.